Spiral from the Book of Saw, starring Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. While Jigsaw was a kind of remake, sort of sequel, this film was intended to be a standalone, with a lot of people from behind the scene returning from the first 6 films, and basically Chris Rock just said he wanted to be in a Saw film, so they made one. The film opens up with fireworks, but then someone gets purse snatched. Detective is on the scene. He goes into the sewers, but it's a fake, and he gets pigged, and he wakes up with his tongue in a thing.
Hello, Detective Boss Whip.
What, no Billy? Instead of using the actually kind of threatening, pitched down Jigsaw voice, Miss Piggy here
has this really pitched down lady's voice, which just doesn't sound as threatening.
But either way, Miss Piggy says that he can jump off the chair he's on and rip out his tongue, or just wait for the train to hit him.
Live or die. Make your choice.
And he uses his superhuman strength to rip through the barbed wire, and his hands are tied, and he tries playing with it, but too late. Meanwhile, Chris Rock is being Chris Rock and talking about Forrest Gump.
Special needs abuse.
Special needs? What, you woke now?
I'm not woke, but you can't say handicap, you can't say you gotta say special needs. I'm trying to be respectful. AIDS? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That shit's abuse.
But he didn't get it.
I ain't seen no sequel.
They were all prepping to rob some guys and make a clean getaway. What could possibly go? At the police station, it turns out Chris Rock is actually a cop, and he was just too undercover. He don't get along with anybody. So they're sticking him with the rookie, William. They investigate the opening. Yep, he's definitely in pieces. Then someone drops off a package for them. Sweet Tiffany's. Wait a minute. And the Spiral Killer leaves a message, saying that cops are corrupt, yo. And Chris Rock recognizes the location and finds yet another Tiffany box. Well, this is a little more thoughtful. And despite all the intact handprints and blood, the badge here is how they recognize it was opening guy. Don't worry, Fitch remembers to call his wife.
Did you actually talk to her, or did you text her? Let me guess, you send an emoji. Did they have a dead husband emoji?
Shut up, Boomer. And it turns out this is personal to Cop Rock. So he's taking control, but the whole precinct doesn't respect him. Damn. The chief chews them out for it. Chris Rock goes home, but someone broke in. And it was his dad, Samuel L. Jackson. Would have been funnier if it was Terry Crews. But either way, he was just checking up on him. And it turns out everyone hates Chris because he turned in a cop for shooting a witness. I really appreciate the film is willing to talk about the complicated nature of corrupt cops and how some cops aren't bad, but most of them are. And it's kind of hard to actually bust them because replacing them might just lead to even more bad cops, and it's not that easy to figure out who's corrupt and who isn't. But either way, they find out the cameras were cutting out just as the purse snatching was happening. Kind of sus. So Finch goes to investigate. They get a shot of the snatcher's face. They investigate, but then Finch gets pigged. And he wakes up in a baseball mask in a pool. Spiral Killer explains, no time, as William realizes that opium guy kind of lied a lot. Chris Rock has to go on a dinner date with his dad, but he disappeared, which causes Chris to have a flashback where he told his dad, who was in his mustache era, about turning in the cop. Then back to the present, we get another Tiffany box, and another video with a puppet that's not Billy, instead it's a pig puppet. They can phone the cops. Chris recognizes the truck. They find a Tiffany box with some sausages in, which causes Chris to remember how Fitch was busy shooting people so much that he couldn't get back up and got shot himself. Typical cop stuff. Then we cut back to Finch's trap even though we just saw his sausage fingers in the box. So seeing the stakes of will he live or will he die in the trap are completely removed. Either way, the trap is the water is slowly rising and eventually it'll touch the copper wire and electrocute him, unless he bites down, which will also rip out his fingers. He does, but he still gets electrocuted. What gives? Then a really big Tiffany box is delivered. Everyone thinks it's a bomb at first, but it's just the pig puppet, covered in a lot of skin, and a letter going to it. On the back, it turns out to be Michael's tattoo. Oh no! You also probably just look up who's buying all these damn Tiffany boxes. They're not in any way cheap. But instead, they find a thing in the puppet, which sends them to the old hobby store, which became a meat place. They find a skinned body and a tape. But no time to show how this guy ended up here and what's on the tape, because it turns out it was all distraction. And the chief got captured. She can either lay there and let hot wax pour on her face, or rip out her spine to escape. Both of those options would just prevent her from breathing, so there's not a win. What the hell? The cops are being cops and are being too lazy to go help people, so Chris has to go and save her. Too late. So now it's really, really personal. He starts expecting that was the crooked cop he turned in. He goes to investigate, but he gets pigged. When we cut back to Samuel L. Jackson, who is doing his own investigation, it looks a little bit like an actual Saw movie for a second. Then he gets pigged. But then Chris Rock wakes up, handcuffed, in a weird place. And he finds a hacksaw, so everyone knows what he has to do. Use it to grab a convenient bobby pin and pick himself out. Also, there was another guy in the room the whole time. And it turns out to be the crooked cop. And it kind of becomes Saw 3 for a second, and he has to choose to either leave him there or save him, as he gets shot by broken glass. Chris finds the key, but too late. And plot twist, the spiral killer was William. And it turns out he's the son of the guy that the crooked cop shot because he was going to turn in yet another crooked cop. He faked his family. He was the guy in the beginning. He went through Chris Rock's phone to look at his weird text messages. But ultimately, he just wants Chris's help to reform the police. I appreciate they didn't do yet another secret assistant, or somehow John Kramer made yet another trap that no one found out about. But also, William doesn't understand the whole redemption angle about the traps, which I'll talk about later. And William calls the cops, and it turns out he has Sam Jackson. All Chris Rock has to do is either use his singular bullet on the bullseye to free him, or use it on William. He uses it on the bullseye, and then he tackles him. The SWAT team uses a saw to get in, but it accidentally hits a tripwire, causes Sam Jackson to become a puppet, and pull a gun, and then the cops do what they do best and shoot the minority, which gives William enough time to escape. Final body count? 8. This movie is still better than Saw 3D, but it's also not Saw. There's like a little bit of Saw elements, but William doesn't understand what Jigsaw was trying to do. The traps are meant to put people in life or death situations, and hopefully if they survive, teach them how to cherish and respect their life. But here there's no way out of the trap alive. And yeah, I understand that he's meant to be a copycat killer and doesn't understand Jigsaw's motives, but it feels so wrong for the franchise to do this. It's the thing that made Saw special. I really hate Finch's trap because we see it begin, but then we cut away, show that he died, but then cut back to show what happened. Just takes the whole suspense out of it. I appreciate they tried to do something a little different. The effects look great, and the cinematography and lighting of the film does look a lot more of like the first 6 films than Jigsaw did. Chris Rock does a decent job in a slightly more serious role. This is definitely the most comedic of Saw films, but it's not a straight-up comedy. And all the other films had a little bit of comedy in it, so it's not as crazy as everyone likes to think it is. But overall, this film's okay, but it's just not Saw. This film kind of feels like what the mainstream thinks Saw is. With a lot of cop stuff and mindless torture for the sake of torture. I still like it more than Saw 3D, but still 4 out of 10.